what would you suggest for global talent, for people who want to develop themselves professionally and personally? What would you suggest for us, I guess from a servant leadership perspective or from your opinion, as we see ourselves throughout our careers?
Sure, great question, thank you. Look, I think there are several things that are really important and apply broadly across the organization, really regardless of your function, your region, or whatever. The first thing is love what you do, learn to love what you do, and really do it well. And it sounds pretty simple, but the jobs that we ask of all of you can be pretty darn hard. And you don't want to be at like the end of your career like I am now, or I'm more towards this end versus you, and say, gosh, I've done something for the last 30 years I really didn't enjoy that much. What an incredible waste of opportunity. And having a passion, having it be something that you really care about, it's not so much work. And you'll do better, you'll feel better. Everyone around you will know it when you have that kind of a commitment. And it doesn't always come right away. You're going to think, you may have started something FLDP. Well, I don't necessarily like looking at these spreadsheets doing, but as you go through it over time, you're going to build, trust me. Dominic says it gets better. The pieces do come together over time, and I'll never forget the first time, and one big aha for me was when I first went into a marketing role, and suddenly I got exposed to all components of the business, and I thought, wow, this is really complex. This is exciting. And so I think that's one thing. I think two is always be learning. The great thing think about where we work, the technology, the innovation, the scale that we deal on. My gosh, if we don't find this interesting, there's something wrong with it. But I think it takes continuous learning. And instead of being intimidated or daunted by something we have to learn, use that as an opportunity to reboot your brain. The next thing for me after performance and passion and continuous learning is be flexible. You may get a chance to work across sector, go to a different country, do something that you never would have anticipated. If you ask anybody on the EC up here 30, 40 years ago if they'd be doing what they're doing today, they'd say, are you crazy? And so take on challenges. Sometimes people will come to me and say, well, I'm not really sure if I'm going to take this job because, I want to think about how it's going to get me here and get me there. I say, you know what? If it's on the bottom, what a great opportunity. Go for it. That's where you can really make a difference. Or take a good company or a good job and make it a great one. Don't be afraid of challenges. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Know where to pick and choose your battles. But challenge us. If all we're doing is agreeing and shaking our heads, that doesn't do anybody any good. I love people early on, even when they, you might have a manager that's not afraid to stand up and say, Alex, that's actually not the way that the market shows, but the data would reflect this. I love that in a meeting. When somebody knows their stuff that well and they're not afraid to stand up to management and others and make sure that they understand what's really going on. And I think the other key ingredient for me is working well as a team. So much of what we do, it's not about what I do, what an individual does. It's how do we bring the right team together. And it's not just through consensus. Once in a while, you argue, you debate, you challenge. You stand up for what you want to do. And just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I don't like you. Well, maybe once in a while. But we got to create an environment where people can do that. It's about getting to the right idea and ultimately the best outcome for everybody. And doing that and learning how to do it on a team, you know what? Someday you're not going to win everyone. Sometimes you got to take a step sideways to realize your longer term goal. Not being afraid of a different point of view. It might be different from yours, doesn't mean it's bad. Helps you get to a better place. So those are a few of the things.